So let's consider why there's pain and suffering in the world. And I have 4 reasons why. I think I actually have 3. No, I have 4. Okay. I thought I wrote the third one down as 4. I have 4. All right. So the first one is that pain is a part of the way that we interact with the world around us. God created a world, and I'll take it that this was before the fall, that we have nerves, and we interact with the world based on that. When I reach out and grab a pan that's too hot, I let go of it quickly because I feel the pain. If I didn't have those nerves, I wouldn't know until I heard sizzling to let go. When you are barefoot and you step on a sharp rock, it's amazing how quickly you can reverse that foot being put down. You step on it and you're just like, whoa, that's sharp, because you have nerves, and those nerves protect you. God gave them to you so that you could move through this world and know when something was going to injure your body. You have to have pain to know that you would back off. It works the same in our conscience and in our emotions. When we begin a behavior and that behavior causes us emotional pain, we have a tendency to change that behavior. It's the same thing, it's just it's a different pain. Every one of us knows what that's like. We head down a road and then we say, I don't feel good. I feel bad. I'm not going to do that anymore. God gives us a conscience, and everyone has it before they ever go to church, so don't blame the conscience on the church. Everybody's got a conscience. And that conscience tells you something's wrong when you don't feel good, and so you want to make a change in your life. Second, God gave man free will, therefore there is evil in the world. God didn't create evil, but God had to give man a choice. If God created all of us and we had no choice but to love him, then what kind of a love would that be? If you were to sit down with a husband and wife, and the wife is like, my husband makes me love him. You know that is not a healthy marriage, right? You go, there's a problem. You might even say that guy's a monster who's trying to make someone love him. You will love me. That's not God. So God gave you a choice. The Bible says, choose you this day whom you will serve. Number 3, God allows suffering because there's a purpose for it. Now this is undeniable, and we see it in our account. That's why we're talking about suffering. Jesus said he was born blind. He went through all that suffering for the works of God. So God had a purpose in that man's blindness. Now God doesn't do things the way men do them. And God uses suffering in our lives to bring about good. God uses suffering in our lives to bring people to Christ. The great example, though, and the most important example for us, is Jesus himself. And follow me on why this is so important. Jesus becomes a man. God becomes a man in Jesus. And he enters in. He created the world where we interact with the world with pain. He created the world where he gave man choice, so men choose evil and increased suffering in the world. And then he came into this world and shared in the suffering at the hands of evil men. In other words, he didn't abandon us in our suffering. He didn't say, I'm creating a world with suffering, and there's going to be evil people that are going to magnify the suffering, and you guys just shut up and put up with it. He didn't say, I'm God, and you guys just go take it. No, Jesus, he carried our sorrow and our grief. Literally, he felt our sorrow and our grief. And he suffered all of that, bled and died, but for a great purpose. So you and I could find eternity. In that we find an example that God had a purpose for suffering. This is our great example that God has a purpose in suffering, that Jesus came, partook in our suffering with us, which is good that he would do that he would say, I'm right here alongside you. I'm in this thing with you. And God, the Father, is using the suffering to bring about good, and you're going to enter into heaven because I suffered. And that's such a good thing. Now, fourth, suffering gives us a chance to be the hands of God. Jesus said, I was hungry, you fed me. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was naked, you clothed me. I was sick, and I was in a prison, you visited me. All these people are suffering. They say, well, when did we see you like that? And he says, when you did it to the least of these, you've done it unto me. So when we relieve suffering, we become like Christ. God has a plan for suffering. God uses suffering in our lives. And it's clearly taught. And God clearly has it. So when someone asks me that question, I tell them, because God has a plan, and he uses the evil of this world and the suffering of his world for his good. An example of that is evil men caused Jesus great suffering and it saved all of mankind.